Ciao, I'm Anna Harsh, professional dancer, author, and host of The Dance Floor, a podcast that explores the power of dance in our lives through personal stories and interviews with experts. Each episode shares life lessons and advice through the art of dance. Learn how dance inspires confidence, fosters connection, and ways to improve your skills. Whether you are a seasoned dancer or brand new to the art, you'll find something that motivates you in this podcast. So grab your dance shoes and join me on The Dance Floor. Welcome everyone to The Dance Floor. I'm your host, Anna Harsh, and today I have a special guest coming to you from Germany. His name is Chris Aquavella, and he's an outstanding musician and educator that plays a string instrument called the mandolin. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Everybody tells their journey here, either as a dancer or musician, actor, painter, sculptor, whatever art form you're doing. How did you get into music yourself?
I think music has been in my life as far as I can remember. I see little baby photos of me, maybe around 2 or 3 years old, where I got the big old 70s headphones on and I'm holding drumsticks in my hand. And I was wearing a Kiss T-shirt, I think,
Oh my
and I'm
goodness.
sitting on the drum kit as if I'm playing. And so I think all the way back to when I was 3 years old, I've always had music in my life, and the people around me always listened to music. So when I was about 10 years old, that's when I made the decision that I wanted to play and be a musician.
Wow, that's incredible. I know dance has always been in my life too. I think ever since I came out of the womb, I was moving my feet and just listening for a beat anywhere, right? Anywhere. How did you pick up the mandolin? That's such an an interesting instrument.
It is very descriptive, isn't it? It's like I went and
Yeah,
found the smallest, most unknown instrument I could find, and then I tried to make a profession out of it.
right.
Um, yeah, well, I started life as a guitarist, I think, as most young boys do, and so I started when I was 10, and I started as a guitarist because my father used to be a professional guitarist, and I grew up not knowing my father as he died right before I was born. And so I always had this kind of legend in my head about following in his footsteps, or that sort of thing. And so I started as guitar, and I played on rock bands, punk bands, everything through the teenage years. And at some point, I came across a bluegrass album of all things. I think it was the Kentucky Colonels with Roland
Okay.
White on mandolin, and I heard the music and I was like, what is that? And I heard the mandolin, and out of all the instruments, for some reason, that one spoke to me. And I went, wow, that's a awesome sound. That's a cool instrument. I think I want to learn the mandolin as well. And, and of course, I've always heard the mandolin being an Italian American. Of course, the mandolin's just in everything. You watch The
Right.
Godfather, there's the mandolin in the wedding
Right.
scene and all of that. So yeah, so it was an instrument that kind of always captivated me, and I took it up and started learning it, and all of a sudden I just fell in love with the instrument, and I played less and less guitar and more mandolin,
I see.
and then the journey started.
Wow. Well, that sort of happened in my family as well. Our family tree on my mom's side goes back 500 or so years of a musician, a dancer, a sculptor, painter, etc. And so it sounds like that was in your family as well, that musician is coming out
even if you didn't know your father. I didn't know one of my grandfathers, and he played mandolin as well.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I think it's a really cool instrument, and it has a certain tone to it that just seems like it welcomes you in, and you have to listen to it.
It does. I think it's a two-sided instrument in the sense that if it's played well with good technique, it welcomes you in. If
Right.
it's not played well with bad technique, it forces you to run out of the room screaming.
Yeah, dance is the
So
same way.
exactly. Well, definitely. If you ever see me dance, you'll notice there's no audience. I've already cleared them out. Definitely, I've been blessed with two good hands, but two left feet at the same time.
Well, for the listeners out there that maybe don't know what a mandolin looks like or sounds like, can you describe it a little bit?
Sure. Well, I play the Italian mandolin or the European mandolin, if you will. And in America, we call them tater bugs. And
Okay.
because back in the early 1900s or late 1800s, immigrants would bring their mandolins from Europe over to the United States, and people didn't quite know what to think of them. And basically, if you were to turn it face down, it basically has what's called a bowl, right?
Right.
So there's the neck of the mandolin where the strings are and you play, and then there's this bowl, and that's where the sound resonates. And there's all these ads from the early 1900s where they drew little legs coming out of the bowl, and
Oh,
they called it
wow.
a tater bug kind of thing. And
That's hilarious.
so that's the
Wow.
Italian mandolin. Of course, in America, we have what's called the F5 or Gibson F5 and the Gibson A models. And those are flatback mandolins. And those have been extremely popular since the mid-teens, 1910s, or to 1920s were the really good years for Gibson.
For sure.
Gibson factory, and they pretty much just dominated America. And so
Wow.
that's the mandolin we know in America.
Well, I recently went back to Italy and got a chance to see one of the mandolins being carved. And I saw the shell of it in the window, and I was just mesmerized how
Cool.
just a piece of wood just comes to life, through strings and somebody playing it. And I think that's part of the magic of music, isn't it? The instruments
It
just come
is.
to life.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, right? Where it's, when we're listening to a piece of music, when we're listening to whether it be classical music or acoustic music or whatever, we're listening to essentially the final product of a very, very long process, because it's the piece of the music. Before that, it was the artist composing it and putting
Right.
lyrics to it, or composing the notes in my case, and being able to technically play it. But also, before that came, he purchased the instrument, and he had to find the instrument that fit his voice and let him express himself the most, or herself, of course. And before that, though, there was the person that made the instrument, that actually,
Right.
as you said, carved out all the wood, and the artistry that went into that, and the tapping of the wood to hear if it had the right ring and the right tone. And before that, it was the picking out of the wood. And so it's such a long line of
Right.
history just to come to the final product of a song, or
I
of a
know,
piece of
and I
music.
don't think the audience really maybe grasps that journey, that long journey
Mhm.
for us as artists, that it took a long time before you get to see it on stage, or before you get to hear a performance, or
Mhm.
production, that somebody took a lot of time and effort to train, prepare. As a dancer, we pick out costumes and pick out music and choreograph and rehearse. So it's a long journey before you get to see it to the stage.
Well, and it goes even further in your case, doesn't it? Because I know you go to Italy and you do all this research. And
Right.
I can't think of how many glasses of wine and how many meals you had to sit through, which
A
I'm
lot.
sure you struggled with.
Struggled.
Oh, it was horrible for you, I'm sure.
Oh,
But
yes.
and you
I
listen
wish
to
it upon
stories,
everyone.
and you learned, right, from
Yeah.
generations previous to you, and well,
Right.
they learned as
Absolutely.
well. And then also, as a dancer, all that training you must have done, and then you have to exercise on top of that to keep
I
yourself in
know.
shape, because
That's what I'm
I
doing
can tell you
next.
right now, if you ask me to dance, I'm pretty much going to pass out like 2 minutes later from lack of being in fit.
No, I get it. I mean, and I just think that people, when I sit down to a concert, let's say, and I'm watching an orchestra or listening to an orchestra, I get it. I just scan the orchestra and just appreciate every instrument and know what it took just to be in that seat, to be first chair, second chair, or whatever they're playing. It's a lot of work and effort. And just kudos to you for picking up the mandolin, because I just think it's beautiful and challenging to play. I've seen people play it, in front of my face, and I'm just mesmerized because I know that it takes a long time just to figure out all of the, fingering for the strings and getting the right pitch and tone. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, we're going to take a really quick commercial break. And then when we come back, will you give some advice for the next generation that maybe is struggling or would like to do something like you're doing? You have so much experience and expertise. So let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, let's give some advice to the next generation and maybe share some life lessons.
Sounds good.
All right, everyone, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back with Chris Aquavella.
Are you ready to take your dance skills to the next level? Do you dream of performing on stage in front of a live audience? Well, now's your opportunity. Allegro Dance Company is always looking for new dancers to join our group. We're seeking talented, passionate, and dedicated individuals who are ready to showcase their skills and make a name for themselves in the dance world. Allegro has been entertaining audiences for over 30 years with dynamic showcases of authentic Italian folk dances, along with jazz, ballet, and yes, even a touch of ballroom. We're known for our high energy performances and innovative choreography. So what are you waiting for? Join Allegro today and be a part of history. Contact us on our website, allegrodancecompany.net, or stick around and chat with us after this performance. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Dance with Allegro.
We're back, everyone, with Chris, an amazing and outstanding musician and accomplished composer as well. Chris, can you give some advice to the next generation that's coming up with, musicians, dancers, anybody in the arts?
Absolutely. I mean, I think obviously one is believe in yourself and believe in kind of what your heart is telling you, because that's essentially what it comes down to in the end, is you're representing yourself, or you're opening yourself up to anyone who would listen. I find education, and especially higher education, is very important if you want to make a career out of this. It's not to say that having a degree will get you a job,
Right.
but the journey of higher education helps shape you and builds you and gives you strength, shows you how hard the industry can be. And it gives you that strength to know that you'll come out on top because you feel you're the best, or you feel you have the most to offer. So listening to teachers. Also, I think one thing that my teacher, Alison Stephens, two things she used to say to me. One, she said, study with as many people as possible, because even if you disagree with them, they still have something to offer. And you listen to all these different teachers, you take in everything, and then you disregard what you feel doesn't complete you. But I've learned something from everybody. Aside from Alison Stephens being my main professor, I've had workshops and master classes with people like Nigel Woodhouse and Katharina Lichtenberg and some other amazing mandolinists. And even though I didn't agree with everything they had to say, I learned something from everybody. And I can tell my students what I've learned from those people and what I kept. So that's I found was very important for me, because it helped shape and fill in some gaps that I might have had from just having one teacher, and help me find myself. The other thing is, my teacher used to say, you can do anything you want as long as you're willing to answer for it. Right. And I found that kind of double step of daunting, but also freeing, because it meant that whatever artistic idea I came up with, as long as I was willing to answer for it, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go for it. And sometimes I'm going to get it right. Sometimes I'm going to get it wrong. And I actually find in my career, you get them both, because as many people that don't like your dance, there's that many more people that love your dance,
Amen.
and get it. And the same thing goes with my music. And my composition teacher, Andrew Poppy, he said, I remember I'd bring him compositions. I'm like, oh, well, can I do this? And he goes, yeah, why not? He's like, why not? You can do anything you want.
Right.
And so I think for young artists that you can do anything you want as long as you're willing to answer for it and you're willing to put in the hard work.
That's true. Every time I presented a piece of choreography in college, I was questioned almost for every movement, not exactly, but maybe for every phrase of movements. Like, well, why did she go to the diagonal? Or like you said, you have to answer for it. And I had to tell my story through movement. We don't talk like musicians. We don't speak. We speak through our movements. And so I had to answer for that. You're right. I had to answer for that. And I really did love having so many professors in college. Everybody does give you something that you take with you. And I love that. And I still abide by that. Even when I go to Italy, I study with several teachers to get different perspectives and ways to teach the same movement even. And so you become a better teacher and educator, and you become a little fuller as a person and a little more cultured to understand a bigger world that we live in, right?
Oh, absolutely. And of course, the other great thing about going to college or going to a conservatory to learn how to be a dancer, to be a musician, is that you also fill your phone with all these contacts, all
Amen.
these people that are going through the same journey as you. You develop a long lasting friendship. Like I just played a concert on Sunday in England, and I went to college in England, Trinity College of Music. And someone who I haven't seen since then came down to the concert, a viola player. And it was so great to catch up and chat and talk with her and hear her story as well. And that's one of the great things about that is as you learn with all these other students, you're building this bond that you're going to have.
It's a network.
All through your career. It's networking. And that's the main thing to learn. In any profession, but definitely as an artist, is you have to know how to network.
100%. I mean, even business, people that are in business, you have to have network and connections that will help you progress to the next level or get you that opening of that door, get your foot into the next thing that you want to try to do. Absolutely.
Totally.
I still keep in touch. Yeah, for sure. That's great advice. Wow, Chris, thank you. Yeah, this is good advice for me too. Like sometimes you always forget, as a professional, like go back to those basics, network with others, have lots of teachers. And even if they're not professionals, sometimes you find a teacher in different aspects of your life in different ways. So look for those teachers around you that maybe you didn't think was a teacher. They might offer you something that you need right now, right?
Absolutely.
Well, Chris, I want to talk a little bit about your music, and I'm going to play some of it for the listeners so they can enjoy it as well. And as soon as I started listening to it, I was like, I can see so many contemporary dances or a folk dance or just different styles. And tell us a little bit about the inspiration for your music, this new composition that you have.
Yeah, so my latest composition is a collection of 30 pieces that I wrote for either solo mandolin or an instrument called a mandola, which is like an octave mandolin. And they're called the Kensington Etudes. And they were pieces that, it was an idea that I came up with, I think in 2019, before COVID. And it was a Christmas present to my students as a thank you for studying with me and sharing your musical life with me.
That's
right.
Nice.
Because I think that's one thing that us teachers should do is thank the people that choose to share their lives with us and allow us to do the other things, and keep us going. So I put it out there, and out of the 40 students I have, 30 came back and said, yeah, I'll do it. Let's do it. And I said, okay, great. And I'm glad it was stopped there because as the project turned into a 3-year project,
wow,
I was like, oh man, I hope there's no more. Like, I'm so glad I don't have to do any more.
Yeah.
But I finally got it done just this last year. It's called the Kensington Etudes because I dedicated the complete work after my very first student after graduating college. His name's Gary Payne, and he lives in Kensington, San Diego.
Okay.
And so I dedicated the whole work to him, but every piece was written for one of my students. And they
Wow.
basically told me in an email what they want to work on, like what technique and what instrument they wanted me to write it for. And so from 2019, I just kind of nibbled away and wrote pieces. So the inspiration for it was a mixture of stuff. Obviously, the student themselves, their personalities, and who I was writing it for. But when it comes to composing, I am influenced a lot by my environment around me and also by artwork. And so in
Okay.
regards to environment, I live in the Tuscany of Germany. I live in a little village called Belgesheim, and right out my back door is the vineyards.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah, every morning after I drop my son off at kindergarten, I walk through the vineyards, rain or shine. Today was very rainy. And about halfway up the hill, there's a wooden bench swing. And I sit on the swing, and it overlooks the vineyards. And I can see my village and then the village next to us called Sachsenheim. And I just sit there and look at the clouds. I might listen to music. But so each one of these pieces pretty much came about on those walks where I'd be sitting there and a melody line would pop into my head, and maybe I'd whistle it or I'd record it into my phone. And if it was a really good one, I pretty much got up right away and ran back down just to try and start working on it.
Wow. When I was listening to a few of the songs, what you're describing is what I saw in my head. A woman running through a vineyard or somewhere far off into a field, running towards something or away from something for some of the songs. That's
Mm-hmm.
what, when I wrote you the email, I said, it's kind of haunting. Like, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what he or she is going through, but sometimes it was like really, they're going through a lot and then it was getting better as the music progressed.
Mm-hmm.
And then other songs were just really wispy and like memorable and seeing memories flash through. So that's what I saw as a choreographer when I was listening to it. I was, gosh, I really need to contact him, and I'd love to do some choreography and collaborate with you, and present
Cool.
it maybe online or something. I don't know, but
Let's do it. I love
let's
it.
talk about it. Yeah.
I love working with dancers, and unfortunately, it doesn't happen enough for some reason.
Yeah.
But I am totally open to that, and I love it because I feel all artwork should come together, right? So the other
Amen.
thing that inspires me is I love abstract expressionism. And so, partly of this new album, which is called Recording of the Dawn, the front cover of the album is also the same front cover I used for the Kensington Etudes publication. And the front cover is a painting I have on my wall upstairs. And from the first time I saw that painting, I was like, oh, that's an album cover. I don't know what album it is, but one day that's going to be an album cover.
Yes.
And it's a series of 3 paintings that go together. The
Wow.
artist was inspired by the North Sea trip she had taken, and she was inspired by that. So she did these 3 paintings.
I love that.
And yeah, and so this works out because Recording of the Dawn is 10 of the Kensington Etudes. Well, there's 30 Etudes. So, and this is volume 1. So clearly the next album will be volume 2, which I'll use another one of the paintings. And then, of course, volume 3.
How amazing is that? I love when things just sort of work out together and it was sort of meant to be, it sounds like.
Totally, I think so.
I
And the
totally
artwork really kind of inspired what tracks I wanted to throw on the album, right? I
okay.
wasn't going to put, the album has, well, as you said, kind of a hauntingness to it. It has a wee bit of a sadness to it. It has a lot of texture to it.
Yes,
It has,
exactly.
I think a lot of times when people look at it, because there's 4 black lines on there, people kind of look at it and see a piano somehow.
Yeah, I did at first too.
Exactly, right? And so, won't they be surprised when they hear a mandolin? But because of that, though, that inspired me in what tracks to put on there. And so a lot of the
Mm.
tracks I put on there were pieces that, yes, I wrote them on the mandolin and I love playing them on the mandolin. But in my head, I'm almost hearing them more on the piano, kind of like,
Mhm.
Alexandra Strelitzky and Max Richter kind of sound, or Philip Glass, that sort
Yeah,
of
Philip
thing.
Glass. That's the person that came to my head too. I kept seeing these abstract, like if I was a lighting designer, like these abstract pieces of like a window pane or something, like you saw the dancer through it. So if you're listening out there, lighting designers, call us. Connect with us. We're ready
Oh
to do
man,
the
we're
show.
gonna have an amazing production
Yeah.
here. We got dance, music,
That's
lighting
right.
production.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll do it in a field somewhere. We'll videotape it, production, and I love
I
it.
love it.
Wow, Chris, so much to unpack. And I hope you come back to the dance floor and tell us about your next one, and all of that. Maybe we'll talk about that the next time, or maybe more about our production that we're going to get together, perhaps.
I would love it. Let's do it. That sounds great idea.
Where can we buy your music? If somebody's listening and they're going to hear a little clip at the end here, where can we buy your music?
Well, you can buy all my CDs, whether it be an MP3 download or the actual physical CD, if you do that still,
Sure.
off of Bandcamp. Bandcamp,
Okay.
Chris Aquavella. You can buy my whole discography if you like. Highly recommended, of course. And the new album's on there, of course. And then, of course, my music is on Apple Music and Spotify and YouTube and everything,
Okay.
all the normal streaming services.
And then your main website, if we want to be in touch with you.
Yeah, my main website is chrisaquavella.com.
Very good. Chris, this was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge on the dance floor.
Hey, thank you so much. I look forward to when we do a production together. And I
I'm
don't think
thrilled.
I'll be on the dance floor. You don't want to see me dance again, but I will throw down on the mandolin.
Absolutely. We'll trade sometime and you can teach me mandolin and I'll teach you maybe a folk dance.
Oh man, my wife would love that. If you could make me a dancer, she would be a happy woman.
We will trade virtually sometime. When are you back in the States? Are you living in Germany perhaps right now?
Yeah, I moved to Germany in 2014 and I come back to the States, well, except for the pandemic, of course, but
Right.
I come back every summer because I'm the director of a mandolin music camp called the San Diego Classical Mandolin Camp.
Yes.
So it's a week of learning about the classical mandolin and its rich traditions and seeing artists from around Europe. And so I'm always back in San Diego.
I'm booking a flight. I have to be at that next year.
Come on out. Come
I
on
want to
out.
come and dance.
Get your grandfather's mandolin. We'll tune it up and we'll show you a thing or two.
Oh
And
God,
you can
wouldn't that
have
be amazing?
margaritas with us and Mexican food by the
Yes,
beach.
love it. Love it. I'm in. All the chips are in.
Excellent.
All right, everyone. Don't forget to visit his website, chrisaquavella.com, and you can see more of that on my notes for the dance floor. Thank you for joining us on the dance floor. Remember to like, share, and subscribe so you can keep learning and growing with us. I'm Anna Harsh, and as we close, we're going to listen to Chris's music, so keep on enjoying. And until next time, keep moving on the dance floor.